totally redefined what the whole thing was for me. For a minute, like, we weren't going to be a band, we weren't going to be making music.
You had to, I guess, reassess and have that discussion.
For so long, the band had just kind of been in this like perpetual motion, and none of us had really stopped and is this like how we imagine things to be. Most of the conversations were like, what are we going to do? That's really the most difficult conversations I have.
Hello and welcome to the Eras podcast, where we get to know the music and moments that have made your favourite artists who they are today. I'm your host, Abbie McCarthy, and in this episode I sit down with Murray, the lead singer of British indie band Hard Life, formerly known as Easy Life. They won Best British Band at the BENEE Awards back in 2020. They have got 2 top 3 UK charting albums under their belt, and they have built a hugely dedicated fan base worldwide. The band have had a whirlwind of a year, and Murray is ready to talk about the rebirth of his band. So let's get into it next. Welcome to the Eras podcast, Murray from Hard Life. How are you?
Hi Abby, I'm good. Thanks for having me.
You are very welcome, and welcome back to the scene, back to it, which we love to see.
Yeah, back
Yeah, that
again.
was a sigh needed. Yeah.
Yeah, it's good to be back.
And as you know, I've been a fan of your band since pretty much day one. So I'm looking forward to like really getting into your career so far. Let's start then right at the beginning. You knocking about in your hometown of Leicester. Mm-hmm. What was that like as a place to grow up? Do you think it inspired you at all?
I actually grew up on a farm outside of Leicester. It wasn't until I grew up and left home that I lived in Leicester and met the other guys.
As in
great.
like a functioning farm?
Yeah. My parents are still farmers now.
No way.
Yeah.
I didn't realise that. Okay, what animals are we talking?
So it's changed a lot since
Right.
I was a kid. My sister and her husband sort of run the farm now. But when I was a kid, it was cows, sheep, like turkeys at Christmas time.
Of course.
Chickens. And then we just like had loads of pets. If there was any like sick animals in the like neighborhood, they would just end up on the farm. So we had all kinds of shit. Like,
Oh, wow.
yeah, it's still a bit like that now.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. You go back home and you're like, okay, there's another animal.
Yeah, and they come and go. You know, like it's sad. I've had so many pets, but yeah, like, it was great. And I think having that space, and I think most kids that grow up on a farm would understand. Like, you kind of just have to make your own. Well, I suppose it's pre-social media. This is pre-like iPhone. This is all of that shit. So you just hang out with your friends. Like, you'd play with like a stick or something, wouldn't you?
Make your own fun.
Yeah, and it would be really fun. It would be amazing. So I think I ended up making music in that same kind of situation where there was a piano in my house, and I just ended up noodling on it, and eventually and here I am now. You know.
Love that.
Yeah.
So obviously the animals a big part of your life. Was music always a big part of your life? Was there like a lot of it played in your home growing up?
Not really. I mean, my parents like music, sure. I have my older brother. I could probably attribute my fascination with music to him, because he still makes music now. He's a producer and songwriter, and he's like 6 or 7 years older than me. So I like really looked up to him as a kid, and I think he probably got me into music really. I remember him, like, he taught me how to play like chords on the guitar when I was like 15.
And have you worked together, you two?
Yeah, we've written some songs together. I mean, we write all the time, but we've released a couple of songs that we've written together. Don't ask me what they're called, because I don't know, but we've definitely written some songs together in the past.
And is that nice? Because some people wouldn't have that relationship necessarily with their brother, but you could click in that kind of creative sense.
Yeah, my brother's like my best friend.
Love that.
Yeah, we talk every day. And so when we get to write music together, it's super, I guess, honest. And lyrically, we can just... He knows where I'm coming from, you know. I don't need to explain that to someone, or I don't need to be shy if I'm writing with other people. I can sometimes feel a bit anxious about lyrics, to be honest. Melodies and like chords and like the song, not so much. But when it comes to like sharing lyrics with people, I can get a little bit...
I'm shy.
Yeah, exactly. You get a little bit like insular. But when, you know, working with my brother, that's never the case. So it's quite nice for that reason. We just relate on so many levels. And of course, he's my brother, so it's just like... Yeah, it's the best. I'm so grateful.
So you were living, on the farm. Mm-hmm. Then you went into Leicester and kind of became a bit more part of the city and the scene that was there. I say that. Was there a particular scene?
what was really exciting about being in Leicester and perhaps the lack of scene was that we really had to do so much work in terms of like creating a scene. And like I've moved to Leicester and I've met the guys in the band. I knew them because I was in other bands before and they were in other bands, and like Leicester's a very, very small city, so anyone who makes music, we all kind of knew each other. So there was a scene in that sense, but we wouldn't really hang out and make music or like share influences and like movies or whatever. It was never like that. It wasn't really a proper scene, but we, with the help of our friends, who's actually our tour manager now, this guy Raj, he was making a studio, like building a studio in this old industrial estate. And we all decided to sort of get involved and build it. And I think I was like 18 or 19 at the time.
And you were actually hands-on building it?
Yeah, like, don't get me wrong, I don't have a clue what I was doing, but the guy in the drummer, Cass, he's an electrician. And that's what he did before he was in the band. So he's like really handy and like spent a lot of time on site. So he was all over it. And we built this thing, like this actual physical building, but that quickly became like a hub for loads of people coming in and out of Leicester. And that's where we based our studio, and I actually attribute a lot of our like early beginnings and, dare I say, like success to actually that building being there. And anyone really who made music in Leicester at that time, I felt they knew about the studio, but they were often in the studio and it was always really busy. And there was certainly a scene after that, but we had to work really hard to create one. You know, it's a small city, so I think
you're always going to be rooting for it, obviously.
Yeah, and it's really nice because it's small. If something happens from there, the whole city gets behind it. You know, like the football team is a classic example, but there's loads of good music coming out of Leicester, and you know, if we play a Leicester show, it's going to be crazy because there's a real sense of ownership for the city, which is really nice.
Was it like that even right from the beginning, as things were slowly starting to take off? People were like, yeah, let's back this band.
Yeah, I think so. And we used to have to be really imaginative with like where we played shows. Actually, it's not even there anymore, but there was this legendary shop called Wellgosh, which was like a streetwear shop. We played a show in there. And that was, I think, maybe not our first ever gig, but it was, I think, maybe our first Leicester gig. And I could be misremembering because my memory's terrible. But, you know, we had to do things like that, and we'd play like little showcases in our studio where we get our friends down, and we shot our first music video in the studio and just in a nightclub in Leicester. And all of those things, I think when you got those limitations, have been from a small place, like you have to be like quite creative and like quite brave to go out and just make stuff out of nothing. And I think Leicester was important for that.
I remember before you were in your band formerly known as Easy Life, you were in another band who actually played on student radio way back when.
No, you never.
And another one of the boys' bands, was it By the
Rivers?
By the Rivers, played at the festival that was at my old uni. So is that, you all met from just, were you fans of each other's bands, or was it kind of like you knew each other from the scene, the band's finished and you were ready to do something different?
Low key, I was like the biggest fan of Jordan's band, and it was really like weird when he joined our band all those years ago. Oh my God. Yeah, it was a bit like that for a while, you know. Because By the Rivers were like this huge like reggae band. Yeah. Which sounds fucking mental. But you know, they'd like supported the Specials and the Wailers, and they were like a serious band.
It makes sense though, like why you're such a blend genre-wise, because you know, like all the different kind of sounds and inspirations you guys would have brought to the table. I feel like although you're always switching it up, there's always like an essence of you guys. Obviously, like the brass has become quite a signature thing. That's quite iconic and unique for a band. It's not always there. So was that like something that became quite core early on, or?
Yeah, I think like any artist or band, like no one ever thinks anyone's ever going to hear their music, and B, like it's going to work, and like what, you get signed and do podcasts and shit, you know, like you never think like that, do you? So at the start, at some point I just whacked out the trumpet and started playing it because I just thought, why not? I didn't then think that I'd have to do it on stage for the next
however many years.
Yeah. And I hate playing the trumpet, to be honest with you.
Do you?
Yep. It's because I'm fucking terrible, you know?
Don't tell anyone. We've never noticed.
I know. God. Yeah, I do a pretty good impression of being able to play the trumpet, but honestly, I can't. And there's been so many shows. It's been a while since I've had to play it on stage, because on the last couple of tours, we actually had a brass section. Yeah.
That's when you know you've made it as well. That's quite cool.
No, that was just my insecurities played out on stage. I was like, I need a brass section because I cannot keep playing this trumpet. There's too many people. Because we'd do some shows early on, and I just get so nervous. I mean, I still get so nervous, like so fucking nervous.
Really?
Yeah, really.
You look so chill whenever you're on stage. Is it just that like real pent up anxiety just before you go on?
Yeah, I think once I'm on the stage, then it's okay. But I'm just really anxious. I'm trying to move away from doing this, but we used to just drink like loads to, I suppose, calm the nerves, or
classic
also
Dutch courage thing.
Exactly.
Isn't it? Yeah.
Since I don't have to play the trumpet, I get less nervous because honestly, I've been on stage, been like trying to play it, and I've completely flapped it.
Yeah.
Many, many times. I'm sure the videos will be on YouTube, much to my dismay, but I don't know how we got onto this, but yeah. So like it was something that we did, and it's kind of stuck, and it was fun. Like I said, when we started, you never think anyone's going to hear, so you kind of bold and brave with your decisions, whether that be like your songwriting or production or use of instruments. Like I just never thought that I'd still be playing the trumpet, but yeah, here I am.
Who would you say are your reference points? Like when you were first sort of writing in the band, who was it you were looking to for inspiration?
I've always been like a massive fan of like Mike Skinner and his lyricism, and I think
he's a goat, isn't he? For sure.
He really is, and is just so unique. You can tell as soon as he starts talking that it's a street song, and I just loved the way that he'd speak about the mundane, and I think I've copied that really. So I think he's constantly writing brilliant lyrics, and I really aspire to do the same. But musically, I don't know. I think I listened to so much. It was a lot of hip hop, really. Like, again, for the lyricism more than the music, I think. Also pop music, and like, you talk about my parents earlier, they'd like listen to the Beatles and the Bee Gees and like, like proper songs, like real classic songs. So I think that's where like my ear for pop might have come from. Yeah, for me, lyrics are like really important. So anything with good lyrics, really, it doesn't necessarily need to be like rap music. I just tends to be that I find that the most compelling for my tastes.
And obviously, you've become a great lyricist yourself, but hopefully I can embarrass you for a little bit.
Oh, please.
Do you remember any of like the early songs you wrote? Please feel free to share some of the lyrics.
God.
I can imagine they're in there somewhere.
I've written some terrible lyrics. Still do. No, seriously. Again, like it's not faking humble. It's you have to write a lot of shit to make good music. I write terrible music and terrible lyrics all the time. Yeah, I am not gonna go there. You've asked me what's the worst lyric you've ever written. I mean, God.
And you're not gonna share.
Yeah, there's
weird
a lot.
That, isn't it? Yeah. Well, okay, when do you think it was that lyrically things clicked and you thought, actually, I've got my own style, I've got my own voice here?
Yeah, because I think it was very easy, like, there was Mike Skinner, and that's like definitely still a very cool reference point, but there was also like what Alex Turner was doing in indie music, and sort of again talking about the everyday. And I think early on I would fancy myself as a young Alex Turner, and that didn't look good on me at all. So I wrote some like pretty like Arctic Monkeys-esque lyrics early on.
Right, okay.
But we all just pretend to be our heroes, don't we?
Of course.
Until
I think
we
that happens at the start, doesn't it? You're not inspired by it, you're sort of like just directly copying until you kind of figure things out.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the best you can do at the time. So I think I was doing that, and I've definitely got a lot of songs that have just ripped Mike Skinner off, and I'm still doing that. But slowly I kind of found my own voice. Like I said, it really does take a lot of bad songwriting, but you can't be scared to write bad lyrics or bad songs, because otherwise you'd never do anything. I honestly have to write so many songs, and most of them I don't like them. So like, yeah, in response to your question of do I have lots of lyrics that I'm not proud of? Yes. I could write books full of bad lyrics.
Yeah, you have to release that at another point. Yeah. But like you say, all part of the process. And then the first gigs you ever did. Do you remember your very first gig? Where would that have been?
Sadly, I don't really remember stuff like that. The first gig I think it was at the Bodega.
In Nottingham.
In Nottingham, yeah, which is like, what is it, like a 200 cap venue? I'm pretty sure this is the first gig, but it was we were playing at like 2 a.m, which was really weird for like a band, but it was like I think it was a club night. We were like on after a DJ, and it was kind of like a student night thing, and there was literally like 10 people there.
A whole 10?
Yeah, and it was really awkward. But we were gassed to be playing.
Yeah.
Really, it was our first gig, and it didn't really matter that there was 10 people there because, well, that was okay. And again, my memory isn't that great, but I think Rob was actually DJing at that show.
Oh, right.
Because he used to DJ back in the day. And I think that's why I was there. And I knew Rob because he was in Dog Is Dead, and I was in bands before that, so I know who he was. But again, he was a bit of a like local legend because Dog Is Dead were quite big, and he's a brilliant songwriter. But that's how I met Rob properly at that first show, and then we started writing and collaborating. And yeah, Rob's like my biggest collaborator now, and like one of my best friends.
I always see Rob Milton in the song credits.
Every single time. Like we write an enormous amount of music together, but we actually met at that first gig.
How did you find it coming from a city like Leicester and then entering the music industry? Because it is still, unfortunately, a bit London-centric, isn't it?
Yeah, it is massively. I've lived here now for like 4 or 5 years or something. I love it here. I think it's great. I think it's the best city in the world. But I think it's very easy to forget that there are other cities, you know, people from London. They don't even know, they couldn't even point to some of these places on a map, you know. But if you're not from London, you know all of the cities so well and really intimately, especially through touring them. And it's always like a big part of what we do. We want to make sure that we're still playing Leeds, Manchester, Newcastle, all these like amazing northern towns.
Have you guys always felt comfortable on stage? Obviously, you were saying you get nervous before, but when do you think it all started to click? Because you guys just look like you're having a ball. Like whenever I see you guys at festivals, I'm like, ultimate festival band. Got the tunes.
Thank you.
You're just like strutting about having a great time. Do you know what I mean?
I'm glad it comes off like that.
The inner panic, maybe. Yeah. But that's definitely how it comes across.
No, it's strange because I have a weird relationship with playing live because I do get incredibly nervous, but once you're up there, there's nothing else like it. It's an amazing feeling, and we've been playing together for a long time now, so it's just, yeah, we do have the best time. I think, like, it's fun. You know, we don't take it too seriously. Like, I'm annoyed if any of us, like, drop a note or fuck up, of course, but it doesn't really matter. No one cares. The audience don't care, so it's always just been about having fun. And in the early days, it was about, like, partying and drinking and stuff, and all of that came hand in hand with having a great time on stage. And, yeah, like, playing festivals is just, like, the best thing. Like, it's so much fun. Yeah, you've probably seen me strutting around on stage. And that's
living
really
your best
funny.
life.
Exactly. It is. It's an incredible feeling.
The buzz of it, honestly, must be amazing.
Yeah.
I feel like I remember I got to introduce you guys at Reading Festival.
Yes.
Was that last summer? It must have been the summer before now. And like,
yeah,
I get a taste of the response, the screams you get from the audience just by saying, you know, welcome to stage easy. And that noise and the buzz I get from doing that. I don't make any music and I can't play any instruments, but I get a taste of it, and it's like, it's such a adrenaline rush.
I think that was the last time I saw you, actually.
Yeah, I think it might have been actually.
That's hilarious. Yeah, that's mad. That's the thing with playing live, especially like at our own shows. At a festival, not so much, because some people aren't there to see you. So they are. Yeah. I've played so many festivals where, like, you know, the audience is just a bit flat, and you're like giving it as much as you can, but then they've just stumbled across you and they're not really listening.
Yeah.
But at like a headline show, I still get really nervous, but you are kind of like immune a little bit because people are just gassed that you're there.
Yeah, people want you to win, don't they?
Exactly.
So it's a different thing.
Exactly. So like, yeah, it's always a good vibe.
What's the weirdest thing you've seen in a crowd as you've looked out?
I've seen all kinds of silly things.
Madness.
Yeah, and I never wear my glasses on stage, so I can't see because I don't want to see people because it's terrifying.
Yeah.
I've seen all sorts, man. There was a long chunk of our career where we would like spend a lot of the show in the crowd and like flying around and like getting in amongst it. And when you're in there, I've witnessed I've seen some sights.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Especially at festivals, there's all sorts of banners,
mental.
there's all sorts going on.
I always say this to the guys in the band. I mean, we always have this chat, so, we're going to be like more mature now and we're not going to like jump in the crowd and shit. But then as soon as anyone's had a single beer and we're on stage, it's
Let's
just
go.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So yeah, more of that to come, I imagine.
What's been your favourite show to date? Like, what kind of ones immediately pop out to you?
Not because of the show, but I think we went to Japan a couple of years ago.
Amazing.
And that's like somewhere I've always wanted to go. And I think for all of us in the band, we were just, that holds a very special place in our heart because we were kind of getting to have this amazing holiday and we were playing these shows like so far away from home and people knew the words and they were special shows. But I think I'm less enjoying like the big shows nowadays. And I think the guys in the band would agree. Like another thing that was good about Japan is like we were playing small gigs.
Almost like back to the beginnings again.
Yeah, and like when we tour America as well, we toured America a couple of years ago and they were small gigs too, and it was so fun because it's got an element of like DIY and you've got so much like work to do, you know, whereas like when we play like the bigger shows, it becomes about the lights and the don't get me wrong, you're still about the band and you still got to perform.
It's a bit about the tricks though, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And it becomes a lot more about the production and even the setting itself, like the building and et cetera, et cetera. And they're really cool, but I think all of my fond live memories happen in like small, sweaty rooms, and I think I want to go back to doing that again.
So, sticking in your kind of early era, your first release was Pockets.
Yes.
Tune. I remember playing that on the radio so much at the time and like loved it. Is that still one of your like all-time favourites?
Yeah. You know what, it is, and that's really rare for me because actually very quickly after I've written a song, I don't like it. And I was saying earlier about how I have to write so many songs to get one I like. I think maybe some of those ones I don't like are still quite good. I just go off them very, very quickly. But Pockets, I don't know why. I don't know what quality it has, but it's kind of immune to that. I still think it's good, and I'm still excited when I see it on the set list and when we have to play it live, or if you want to talk about it now, like I still get excited about it because there's something very pure about that song. You know, it was like, again, I've banged on about how you never think anyone's going to hear it and how amazing the whole experience is. But Pockets came from that, you know. It was just us in our little studio in Leicester and it was very raw. I still hear that when I listen to it now, and it was such an important song for our career because before that we didn't really have a career, and then all of a sudden, like, you know, not that it went viral or anything, it didn't need
but
to.
But you think it did really, didn't it? The fact that it was like your first thing out there, connected in that way.
Yeah, I suppose it didn't feel like that for us because I think we were also like bitter and old by that point. We played in so many different bands and played like all of the like tiny fucking pubs and clubs in the East Midlands. Like, sure, that was our first song for what was called Easy Life, but like it didn't feel like it happened overnight for us anyway. It felt like we'd been working at it for years in various different forms, and it all kind of culminated with that song that did get some traction, and it was very special for us, and I still love that song. I think it's still, there's other songs that I wrote in the same time which I haven't really stood the test of time, for me anyway. That's not to say I don't like them, it's just whatever. But Pockets, I still like that one.
It's just such an earworm. It's so good. But also, you're talking about that backstory, or all the work that you put into that point. Do you think then when the band got together and you were making music, it almost came with a bit of freedom because you'd done the band thing before and you were kind of just like, let's just do something for fun and see where it goes?
Massively. And I think that's why I love that song so much. It's funny because really Pockets was me not caring at all, and even some of the lyrics are quite actually like taking shots at some people in the music industry that I'd rubbed shoulders with and had sort of promised me the world in other bands and various forms. And I think the guys in the band had a similar experience in their projects. And I think we decided for so long this is a long time ago now, it's like more than 10 years ago, but as like a teenager or whatever, be like writing songs with the audience in mind, thinking, oh, what would this be good? And are people gonna fuck with this tune? Is this like a is this going to be a big song for us? Is this
smash?
Yeah, exactly. Is it going to like move the needle and all these things that people say? And all of a sudden you're writing like really homogenized, boring music that's been done and is really derivative. And I would then be taking these songs to, labels and managers at the time and being like, I promise you I'm really good, please sign me, blah, blah, blah. And I got so sick of that. Yeah. And we formed the band as an antidote to that.
Yeah.
And Pockets was literally the first time and probably the first song I wrote that I did really just for me. And like, I didn't care if anyone liked it. And the irony is that that was the one that people liked.
And also, ironically, it was a bit of a fuck you to the music industry, and then was the one that labels were like, hang on a minute.
Yeah. I know.
Who are this band? And, the attention started, didn't
it?
I
know. It is an amazing... The irony is palpable. It's fucking great. But yeah. I try to remember that now, and I can't put myself in the same headspace as back then. But when I'm making music, I always try and not A, like underestimate the audience, or B, even like really consider them, because I think you're in dangerous territory there where you start writing for other people, and it should never really be that, or it certainly wasn't that for me as a kid. When I was writing songs, it felt very much like I was doing it for me.
Yeah, self-expression, I guess, really is what it should always be.
Yeah, and obviously, like, then you get signed and you do X, Y, and Z, and there's pressure and there's all the other things that happen, and it's very easy to kind of forget that actually people just want to hear your truth, whatever that is. And as soon as you start trying to like sing something that isn't from, I was going to say from the heart, but that's quite cringe, isn't it? But as soon as you do something that isn't you, like, I think it's very obvious.
Oh yeah, authenticity, I feel like, is a thing that shines through in music, doesn't it? You can just sniff it out if people aren't quite feeling it.
You really can. And like, I've got people in my team that I've sent them music, and I think it's amazing because
like, this is fire.
Yeah, but because perhaps I'm like tainted and I think, oh, this could be a good, big song, or this would go down well live, or whatever it is I'm thinking, and they've been like, no, this isn't you, like, what are you doing? And I've had to check myself and be like, yeah, you're right, and thank you, because I needed that, and I need to reconnect. And I keep coming back to Pockets, but I think that's why it's so special, is because the person that wrote that song, I always try and tap into that same mindset when I'm writing now, because it is just pure and unfiltered.
So who are these people in your team? Like, who are the people you would say your kind of sounding board?
I mean, a lot of the guys in the band.
Yeah.
Of course, but I have like great management. My brother, to be honest, would probably be, he hears nearly all the music I make, and he's brutal, He doesn't need to mince his words. He'll be like...
Sometimes you need that, though, don't you? You can't be surrounded by yes people.
It's really hard.
Otherwise, you just get an ego in a way.
Yeah, it's really hard because, some people do treat you differently if you're like moderately successful. They're like, they do want to be like, oh yeah, this is great, well done, and you do you're the artist. But I'm lucky in my team, I got a lot of people that, tell me straight and be like, this is garbage, what you're doing.
Yeah, Murray, no mate.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a no from me.
Yeah, you need no people as much as you need yes people. And I've got those in abundance.
So we were talking about Pockets. You released that, and then a year later, roughly, you signed to Island Records.
Yeah.
And how did that feel at the time? Like, you must have been buzzing. This band from Leicester signed to a major label.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to take myself back to that headspace now, but yeah, we were over the moon, of course. Like, people were going to pay us to be a band, and like, we were hanging out already at our own expense, but now someone was gonna pay us to hang out. Of course, it's like what every young band dreams of, So it's, I'm super grateful that happened, but it did change like the dynamic of things, and it did change. I'm talking about the songwriting, especially. Like, you get signed, there's pressure like instantly,
course,
so it takes a toll, and I think it takes a toll on any artist who signs to a major, or even just signs full stop, or promises they'll deliver X amount of songs to anyone. Obviously, I can say this now with retrospect. At the time, we were just gassed, obviously.
Yeah, it's like, what? Okay.
Yeah, it was mad. And we were like I said, we had this spot in Leicester that we'd built with our friend Raj and Jordan's brother Perry, who also co-owned the studio. And we were bringing like, there was label like bosses and things coming on the train to Leicester. I'd pick them up in my Clio from the station, drive them to our like dodgy industrial estate, into our like room, which just like stank of weed, and would be like, play them our music. And it was so, I don't know, magical really to be living it. It was a real special thing to do with your friends. It was amazing. It was a great time, a great period. And then I suppose like the real work started.
Yeah. You've got to start performing, like you say. You've got a label kind of being like, right, what's coming release-wise? Then it was the early mixtapes that came, Creature Habits, Spaceships, Junk Food. Yeah. So who were you working with at this point? It was still quite a small team of collaborators, right?
I can't remember like the exact track listing of those things, but that was all me and Rob, like writing and production, doing all of it. And that's not really changed a great deal. There's been times in my life and certain albums and stuff where I've branched out and worked with other people, but Rob and I have always been fairly consistently at the controls. Not all the time, but in general. And I think before we were signed, I was working on the market I think I was doing like 3 or 4 days a week, or sometimes we would go away for the weekend and we'd do like festivals, because I worked on Jacket Potato Van. Oh, so we would
favourite Jackie P villain?
Oh man, it just depends. It really depends.
I suppose you're a man with experience.
Exactly.
It's a big question for you.
Don't talk to me about Jacket Potatoes. We'll be here a long time. But I was working there, and that's what was sort of like paying my rent and stuff, and it was great. And then I would have like half the week free, and Rob and I would. This is before we got signed. Rob and I would just carve out half the week and spend it together, like religiously every single week. We did that for like almost a year. Wow. And that's when we wrote Creature Habits, and some of I think it was Spaceships that came after that, some of that in that same era too. And then when we got signed, I suppose I didn't work on the Jacket Potato Van anymore, but Rob and I would still spend the same amount of time together. And that's when we did the rest of Spaceships. And things started moving with the band, and we were like touring. So I think I wrote some of Junk Food in LA, but again, Rob was there by my side. We were still doing it together.
So Rob then, what's so like special about him to you? Is he just like almost like a brotherly thing now because you've spent so much time together? You've just got that kind of like, that just understanding, I suppose.
That's it. It's like we know each other so well outside of the studio, but in terms of like when we're working together, I mean, the reason I said we sort of spent a year together, 4 days a week to write the first mixtape, I suppose the reason that process took so long was because we needed to get to know each other, and he needed to get to know sort of my vision and what it was I was trying to do. And lots of those times would just be like days sort of scrolling through snare samples trying to get the right snare. Whereas now, like, we'll get the right snare in a minute because he knows I know what he wants and he knows what I want. And
it's like a formula now, isn't it? It's like the hard life sound,
And you get that sort of language developed between you. So I think Rob and I are just so in tune with each other. And I've collaborated with a lot of people, but there's something special about when Rob and I get together. Again, like he sort of lived this journey with me. He was signed as well before to Atlantic. He's a little bit older than me, but he was there at the very beginning, you know. So I think, like I keep saying, I'm trying to sort of put my mind in that place I was back then is when I felt I was making the best music. So having someone that was there at the time is like really helpful for that.
Yeah, it'll help just unlock that forever, hopefully.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think, you know, I'm deep in it, but I think I just love making music with my friend Rob. You know, we're friends and we'd do this anyway, you know. It didn't it doesn't matter if we were making music for my project or because we're signed and we need to make an album or whatever it is. Like, Rob and I would still hang out and probably end up making music.
Maybe eating a jacket potato.
Exactly.
TBC. You spoke a bit about other people that you've collaborated with then.
Yeah.
It's some list now that's racking up, right?
Yeah.
Kevin Abstract, Gus Dapperton, BENEE, Phineas.
Yes.
Like, talk to me about those people, because they are like a dream to so many people.
Yeah, I mean, they were all a dream for me too. It's just amazing that we were able to. I mean, I've known
Arlo Parks as well. I've missed out.
Oh
of
God,
course.
yeah.
It was like your kind of first duet as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was actually. Yeah, I bumped into her in a studio in West London, and I knew who she was. This was just like really early on, and she'd released, I think she had Cola out, which was like, I think her first single, and then maybe some of that EP, I'm not sure, but I was just a huge fan, and I bumped into her in the studio, so I just asked her if she wanted to make some music, and yeah, we made Sangria. So that's how that came about, like super organically. And that was our first feature or collaboration or whatever.
Yeah.
So it just happened really naturally. Gus, I've known Gus for forever. Like,
oh, have you?
Well, he was touring the UK and we were the support band.
Oh.
Like really early on, and it's so fucking funny because oh man, we had like the same haircut and the same glasses. He's like 6'2" and I'm like 5 foot at best, so it was a really weird thing. But like other than the height difference, we were the same, and we were kind of making very similar music, but he's from New York,
right?
So like we were worlds apart, but we just kind of found each other, and since then we've like always stayed like really good friends. I mean, BENEE sort of came through Gus, really. Like they're friends, I'm friends with Gus, and like they'd had that like smash Super Lonely,
wasn't it?
Yeah. And I had like this song I couldn't finish, and Gus was like, I should reach out to BENEE, so I did, and that happened. So all of these are really organic so far. I'm just, the only one that was a little bit more staged, I suppose, was Kevin. Because I was just like a massive Brockhampton fan, like huge. So the idea of having Kevin do a verse on our track was just like, not gonna happen, but it did. And like my A&R put me in touch with his people, and I was in LA, and I pretty much finished the album, to be honest, and I was just gassed to be like hanging out with him. And I played it to him. We were in a studio, and yeah, he just put his verse down there and then. He's a super sweet guy. He then like took me around LA and looked after me all weekend.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it was really nice.
Especially being a fan and then being like, oh, he's actually a nice guy.
Yeah, he's super nice, and all the guys in Brockhampton were super sweet.
Do you think any of those collaborators taught you anything that you sort of still take with you?
I mean, I've written a lot with Gus. Not a lot. That's an overstatement, but I've written the most out of all of those with Gus, and like I learned from working with him because he's just like, his like sense of melody is really special, and he would just come up with something really quickly, which I'm not very good at. It'd take me like quite a long time before I find like my little thing, but Gus will just have melodies for days. So and another thing, yeah, Kevin too actually like wrote his verse in what seemed like probably like half an hour by the time he'd like said he wanted to do it, and I was sort of like getting the track ready and like making a space for him, and like he'd just written his verse and tracked it, and then we went for food. Like he'd just done it. So I think they're like very professional, aren't they? I mean, they're very good at their job. I'm like very slow, but yeah, they're quick. I'd like to be that quick. I'm like painfully slow. Like it's so annoying. It's really annoying.
But sometimes you are like, oh, I really need to get this. Yeah,
it's really annoying. Like I'll sit on a song or an instrumental for honestly like years. There's so many, like I have some amazing songs that I just haven't finished because I don't know why. I don't think it's laziness. I think it's just like, I don't think I'll ever finish them because there's something about like, you have to bottle up a song. As soon as you have the idea, it needs bottling and like capturing like a picture.
Yeah, like a
and
snapshot.
Like, yeah, exactly. And if you don't get the picture and it's like out of focus and blurry, like you'll never get it again. And like you can chase it as much as you want, but unless you caught it, it's gone. So like having those ideas come quickly, like Kevin and Gus, like helps because it keeps you moving forward. Whereas I often get stuck with the writing process, just like I've got some chords I like and the drums, and I make an instrumental very easily, to be honest, or like easier than making the lyrics, but it's always the lyrics and the melody I get stuck on. Especially the more you write music, I sort of fall into these tropes and I do the same thing again. I'm like, oh, but that sounds similar to that thing I did on that other song. And you can become very self-critical. And as soon as you're in that headspace, the magic's gone, because you're not supposed to be analysing it, you're supposed to be feeling it, really.
Yeah.
And as soon as that's not the case, then it's time to go home and make a sandwich and just
leave it.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah.
And
some days, I guess, are just not going to be it, right? That's just part of the process.
Yeah, and for so long, again, I think it was like when we got signed, I was so grateful and so gassed, that I could, in theory, spend every single day in the studio, and someone was paying me to do that, and that is just such an amazing privilege, and I'm still very aware of that. And perhaps because of that, I would go to studio every day. And so many writers do this, and I think probably I read it on like a blog or saw it on YouTube or something, but treat it as like a 9 to 5 and go there every day. And I did that for quite a few years, but I don't do that anymore. Like, I actually spend very little time in the studio because I just can't force it. And my brother like jokes with me. He calls me a waste man. He's like, what are you doing? So,
and you're like, it's just not happening today.
Yeah. It's like, what did we say? It's not about he has this funny phrase for me, but I can't remember. It's like that. It's not about how long you're working for. It's the work that you do. Something like that.
Yeah.
Something like that. But yeah, he just thinks I'm a waste man. But I think there's something in that, I used to go there every time, and I think you end up just banging your head against the wall, being like, I must write a song, and it works for so many people. I've got loads of friends that do that, and it works for them, and that's great. And I think I was lying to myself. That doesn't work for me. It's annoying, but I just need to like stumble across the ideas. Most of the time I'm not in the studio. I write like a lot of songs just at home. And then I don't record them, and then I go to the studio to record them, and the moment's gone and they're dead forever. So it's a stress.
You guys, you write a lot of songs at home then, but they've like translated to an international audience like hugely. When was the moment you realised your music was kind of going global? You've done like Coachella, like you were saying about the gig in Japan earlier, and there's these pockets of fans kind of all around the world now. Yeah,
I mean, Coachella was a weird one. That happened like really early on in our career, like super early on. And there was like not very many people in our show, but like we were dudes from Leicester playing Coachella. We were like,
made it.
Yeah, right? It was fucking mental. Yeah, it was really cool. I'd love to go there again and like do it for real. Tour in America was good. It was humbling, actually. Not on that tour, because we were playing Coachella, and there's nothing humble about that. It's all like cocaine and influencers. But when we went on tour, like we were playing tiny shows and traveling in a van again, and it was really good. And I think it made us like, you'd meet fans, like you said, it was amazing because you'd meet fans that had a completely different story to you, and like they'd interpret the songs in a completely different way to how I perhaps intended, and you meet them for real, and you talk to them and you go for a drink with them or whatever, and like that's really special. We can't really do that so much in the UK because like people get a bit like, they scream in your face and they get really excited. But out in America, we're still like a really niche, small band. So it's quite nice when you go to these places and can have those experiences again.
Yeah, definitely. Let's talk about your debut album.
Yes.
Life's a Beach. I mean, the title still stands. So many big songs from that record. Skeleton, Daydreams, Nightmares, probably my favourite one.
Yes.
Were you just like in a real groove making this album?
I really don't know. It was like we wrote a lot of that in lockdown. So that had its challenges. Like I was doing loads of it just in the house, and like recorded all the vocals in my house for that whole album in my flat. And that's actually when I started getting into like engineering, and like, because I was like, shit, I need to make this sound good. How do I do that? And what gear do I need to do that? And it's kind of went down a rabbit hole since then. But yeah, I really like that album, and I think we were like, the track listing is good, but it never felt for me that I was really like on some shit or like doing like the lockdown skewed it a little bit, to be honest, because maybe we were in a groove songwriting wise, but obviously the whole world had just come to a standstill and it was all just a bit of a fuckery. So especially like for the band, like we stopped touring and like blah, 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 it had a massive effect on everyone. So I think making an album through that was really fun, and it gave me like a purpose, which a lot of people didn't have in those times. So I'm really grateful for that. Yeah, I'm proud of the album.
Yeah, it's an amazing debut.
But it wasn't just like wrote Skeletons and the next day wrote daydreams or whatever. It
Yeah.
wasn't like that.
Yeah.
Definitely wasn't.
If only, I suppose.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's move into your current era
hmm
and address the name change, because I'm sure you're basically over the drama, but, you know, the fans will want to know a little bit more about it.
We've done so well. The fact that you've not mentioned it,
Right? It's probably been
Yeah.
quite nice for you.
First
of
I tip
all-
my hat to you.
Are you all right?
I'm doing good. Thank you,
Yeah.
Abbie. Yeah. I'm doing well. The whole thing was surreal, absolutely nuts, but maybe it's too soon to say, but I think I'm kind of grateful, really. I feel good for it.
That's such a positive outlook.
Yeah, and it's been like 9 months since we first got sued, so I've had time to process, and I haven't always been this positive. Don't get me wrong, I've been through all of the stages, but where I'm at now is like it totally redefined what the whole thing was for me, what the project is. For a minute, like, we weren't gonna be a band, we weren't gonna be making music, and now
I did wonder if that had crossed
Yeah.
your mind. Did you had to, I guess, reassess and have that discussion?
Yeah, of course. Like, so much had happened so quickly. Since we got signed, you just kind of went from one thing to the next thing. And for so long, the band had just kind of been in this like perpetual motion, and none of us had really stopped and spoken and sat down and said, oh, is this what we want? Is this like how we imagine things to be? Is everyone doing all right? And suddenly there was this hard stop to everything. It allowed us to have those conversations. And for me personally, just to kind of reconnect with why I make music, who it is that I'm trying to be, and all those like deep soul searching questions that I think everyone has in their late 20s, really.
Yeah.
And so for those reasons, I'm kind of grateful that things stopped and I took a little bit of a slower pace over the last 6 months. And I just feel honestly really inspired, and I want to make loads more music, and I'm super grateful for the opportunity to make music. It was kind of like something perhaps that we were taking for granted a little bit, and that's not the case now. I really want to do the most, play all the festivals, like release all the songs, and that's nice. That's like an authentic feeling. That's not me trying to self-promote. Like, I actually want to do those things now.
Yeah.
Whereas
You're genuinely excited again, I
Yeah,
guess, isn't it? Because you are almost resetting.
Exactly, and like it feels exciting and new, and I'm really grateful for that because it didn't before, So sure, it's been a shitty way to reach that realization, but it's a beautiful thing nonetheless.
When you were doing that soul searching, having those kind of deep conversations with the rest of the boys in the band, what were the things that revealed themselves?
Being in a band is such a interesting sort of social experiment, really, because you start a band with your best mates because you're best friends and you want to spend all your time together. And then in a relatively short space of time, you essentially become colleagues, and sure, we're best friends, of course, but we work together, and you're no longer choosing to spend time together because you have to spend time together. That's fine because we get along, don't get me wrong, but the dynamics change within a band, and then you're on tour, and like I said, we were very into like drinking, etc., and like all those things happen so quickly, and I think for it to stop and for us all to just sort of check in and be like, how's everyone doing? Are you good? Like, that thing you did like 2 years ago on tour really fucked with me, and like that wasn't cool, but there's been no time to have these conversations, and just sort of like checking in and having like really difficult conversations but really honest conversations, and I'm so grateful for that. And I think it's getting older or maturing, you all of us kind of are able to have those conversations, and it's been good. I think it's been a really positive thing.
Yeah, it sounds very productive, like a clean slate moving forwards. And also the love you guys must have felt. It was such an outpouring, wasn't it? On social media, whether that was from the fans or actually people in music kind of trying to sort of stick up for you as well. That must have been quite overwhelming, but also obviously so lovely.
It was unbelievable. Like, we didn't expect any of that. We'd sort of had our chats internally with our managers and figured out what was what with like the lawsuit and et cetera, and we'd sort of posted something online, and I think I could say that actually did kind of go viral, or it went viral in my little community anyway, because it was just everywhere, and we've done so much stuff as a band, and I've never had the amount of texts, phone calls, like it was ginormous. It was so much bigger than us as well, because it was a story of, it was a story that resonated with people, not because of the music. It was just again, I might be overstepping it, but it was kind of like mainstream news, It was just like people that have no idea who I was were messaging me being like, good luck and all of this stuff.
Go get them.
Yeah, and it was just an amazing display of like unity from the general public. It was really special, and something that we didn't think was going to happen, and that kept us going, really. There was, again, like I said, we've had lots of difficult conversations, but also like most of the conversations were like, what are we going to do? That's really the most difficult conversations I have, and having the fans there and saying, we miss you, or whatever they say, and just having them there and knowing that they want us to come back meant that, we were like, fuck it, we'll change the name,
we go again.
Yeah, and like the name, if it really bothers them that much, like, I'll change the name, because we're still the same. We still make the same music. It hasn't changed anything.
When did the name come to you?
The very first time we were told that we had to change the name, everyone in the band, we were on Zoom with our managers, and everyone was like, we'll just call it Hard Life.
Like almost joking, and then you were like, actually?
We were all joking, because none of us thought that any of this shit would ever happen the first time they bought us. Yeah. Like, our manager sat us down. And even like when we put it out,
I thought it was a joke, I'll be
everyone
honest.
did.
And I remember messaging being like, and I was like, oh, are you actually all right?
Everyone did. Every single person, like, everyone thought it was a joke. I thought it was a joke.
Yeah.
Like, it is a bit of a joke, isn't it? I mean, it's just hilarious. It's the most surreal thing that's ever happened to me. Of course, it's just completely bonkers. And so in amongst that, our managers have sat us down, and we just came up with Hard Life. And then as the situation progressed and we realised it was for real, we then sort of got our pen and paper out and came up with a million band names.
Some dog awful ones, I imagine.
Yeah, some terrible ones, some quite good ones. But it all just it didn't feel real. And like the first idea that we all had was Hard Life. And I think something about sort of trusting your instincts, like the first idea, like we were talking about the songwriting earlier, like unless I have an idea right there and I manage to bottle it, then the ship sailed. So I've tried to trust my instincts and be like, no, the first idea that you had for the band name is the best one, so just roll with it.
Hard Life it is.
Yeah, and having to do that in public was mortifying, because choosing a band name sucks. Like, it's the worst thing. So like having everyone watching and all your friends in the pub,
everyone
like
waiting,
like, what you're going to be called? I was like, for fuck's sake. But every time I said Hard Life, it managed to get a little giggle. So we rolled with it.
Hard Life it is, and no matter the name, the same DNA of the band still exists. You're back with a bop, a song called Tears. And I love that you just straight on address the issue. These lyrics, it was easy in my 20s, now I've got a lawyer up. Give me air miles or a fair trial. That is straight bars. You just tackled this thing. Like, did you write that in the madness of everything that was going on?
Yeah, I mean, I wrote that song like in February, so it was deep in amongst all of the craziness. And yeah, I mean, I've always just written about my experiences and what I'm going through, so I had to address the ongoing lawsuit. And yeah, that was the best way I could, really. There's not a song you can write about what they see as like an copyright infringement. That's so fucking boring. Like, there's just not a song in it.
A little bit dry, isn't it?
Yeah, so dry. I'm somewhat of an expert on that now, like, reluctantly, you know, but there's not a song in that. But I had to address it in a way which felt appropriate. And like, again, because the fans were there always asking, like, what's going on? So I felt like I had to say something.
And I feel like your lyrical style is something that you've got known for. It's very fun, observational.
Thank you.
How do you approach lyrics? Is it lyrics first?
What, before the song?
Yeah.
No, never. Never. No, I've never done that. I write a lot of stuff down, like all the time, like on just notes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I write everything down, and that's usually what informs my lyrics. But if I've got an instrumental that I like and a title or whatever, then I will just doom scroll in my notes and find little bits and bobs and piece them together and stuff like that. But it tends to just be sort of observational nonsense.
What are your ambitions with this new era? The fact that it is a restart, and I guess you've had time to think about it.
Yeah.
Looking ahead to the next kind of couple of years, what would you love to achieve?
That's a really good question. There's no milestone that I could say, like, if I do this, that would be great. Whereas there always has been in the past, and we've actually achieved some of them, and it's been great, and it's been like an amazing thing. But I think with the new project, I'm reluctant to put those things in place because I think things can end at any point, and like, I don't want to sort of place the value of what I do on necessarily the results or, quite sort of matter of fact things. My goals really are to write the most authentic and honest music I can. And again, this sounds very lofty and pretentious, but like I really just hope to keep this energy that I have now, and this I just feel genuinely like really grateful and really happy to be making music, and that hasn't always been the case. I'll be honest, like there's been times where I've fucking like hated what I do because it can be very stressful, and like I don't want to go back to that place. That was a place I was in when we were doing really well, so as long as like myself and the guys in the band feel like happy and like healthy, I think that really is where I'm at. And again, if we do that, I imagine all the other stuff will fall into place, because if you put that kind of good positive energy out there, it comes back. So
yeah, and you'll enjoy it even more this time around, if and when it does happen.
Yeah.
There's obviously more music to come.
Yes.
What can you tell us about this up and coming era?
Honestly, like, I don't even know what I'm going to do next after Tears. Like, we've just released this song. I have a lot of music that I've been writing. I found like 808s for the first time, which I've not been using before.
Amazing.
They're really fun and loud and bassy. I have loads of music that I'm sat on. I don't know if I'm going to release any of it or which bits I'm going to release. And I'm not being coy, I just haven't actually...
You're living in the moment a little bit more.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I think, and it's unbelievably cheesy, isn't it? So I'm glad you said it, not me, because like, I don't want to, but like that is it. And that's kind of what I'm trying to do, is just try and be a little bit more present and I suppose find like enjoyment in things. And that includes writing the music. So yeah, just, I don't know what it's going to sound like, but I'm going to enjoy doing it.
Yeah, I'm ready. I'm excited. Murray, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
It's been great. Thank you so much. I've just been like, it's been like a bit like therapy, really.
It has been actually, isn't it?
It's got quite deep.
Yeah. Okay, let's cut and we'll really get into the deep traumatic stuff next, shall we? Murray from Hard Life, everybody.
Thank you. Thanks, Abbie.
Thanks to Murray for his honesty in our chat. I love his positive outlook and I'm excited for where the band is headed next. And thanks to you for listening. Please do rate, review and subscribe so we can get the word out there about our podcast. And why not let us know what artists you'd like us to chat in depth with next. This has been a Good Karma production recorded at Metropolis Studios. See you soon.